Good morning, students. Today we are going to see about hypothalamus and epithalamus. It's quite an interesting topic. Many students do get confused with this topic because of its location and too many tracks passes through it and too many functions of this small area. Today we will see in detail about these topics, and I will make sure that you people understand something about hypothalamus and epithalamus today. So before getting into the detailed description of hypothalamus or epithalamus, we should know where these structures are located. For that, we should have an idea about the development of the brain. So the brain is developed from the neural tube. The neural tube on its cranial end will consist of three swellings. The three swellings are going to give rise to the primary brain vesicle. The primary brain vesicles consist of the cranial most prosencephalon, then the mesencephalon, continued by the rhombencephalon. In further development, the prosencephalon is divided into telencephalon and diencephalon. The telencephalon is rapidly developing and it is going to develop into the cerebral hemispheres, the two cerebral hemispheres. So it is rapidly developing, it is engulfing the diencephalon, which is not that rapidly developing. It is developing, but not in an enormous way, in a huge way. The cerebral hemispheres, it will be developing in a rapid manner. It will engulf the developing diencephalon. Diencephalon, though it is small, it is going to be the center for all. So the telencephalon is going to engulf the diencephalon. The telencephalon and the diencephalon together makes the prosencephalon. We know about the mesencephalon. I have already told in the last class. Midbrain is developing from the mesencephalon, or it is also called as mesencephalon, I have told. And this is going to be the rhombencephalon region, the vesicle, the secondary vesicle, which is going to divide into metencephalon and the myelencephalon. The metencephalon will give rise to the future pons and cerebellum, and the myelencephalon will give rise to the medulla. The remaining part of the neural tube will give rise to the spinal cord. So in a nutshell, we should have an idea. The prosencephalon is divided into telencephalon and diencephalon. I haven't told anything about the diencephalon here. In the next slide, we will elaborately study about the structures of the diencephalon. The telencephalon and the diencephalon together makes the rhombencephalon. Telencephalon give rise to the cerebral hemispheres. Mesencephalon give rise to the midbrain. And the rhombencephalon will give rise to the pons, cerebellum and the medulla. The remaining part of the neural tube will give rise to the spinal cord. Our topic of discussion is diencephalon, which we will study in the next slide. This green colored region is going to be the inner brain or the diencephalon, which is located around the third ventricle. The fourth ventricle is going to continue as the third ventricle. It is communicated by means of the cerebral aqueduct. While we were dealing with the midbrain, I have already revised about it. The third ventricle is the cavity of diencephalon. The diencephalon consists of thalamus. See here, this is going to be the thalamus. This region is going to be the epithalamus. This region is going to be the hypothalamus, and the sheet of gray matter which is between the midbrain and the thalamus is going to be the subthalamus. So these are the structures which are appreciated at diencephalon. I repeat, first is going to be the thalamus. Next is going to be the epithalamus. Then will be the hypothalamus. This whole lot is going to be the hypothalamus. And then a sheet of gray matter which is located between the midbrain and the thalamus. Where the thalamus is resting is the subthalamus. And here you can see the optic chiasma, the optic nerve, which is going to cross over here, this optic chiasma. All these structures together make the content of the diencephalon. So when we are talking about epithalamus, we should know what makes the epithalamus. Here is the epithalamus region. The epithalamus consists of one median swelling called as the pineal body. This is going to be the pineal body, and here located the habenular nucleus. Both the side right and left habenular nucleus and the pineal body together makes the epithalamus. I repeat, the epithalamus consists of one pineal body and two habenular nucleus along with the commissure fiber which is connecting both the side habenular nucleus. This makes the epithalamus. Clear? And this is going to be the thalamus. The thalamus is located here. The third ventricle will be passing in between both the thalamus. The thalamus is also called as dorsal thalamus. Coming still more ventrally, here the midbrain gets over, here the cavity is slightly sloped, and this region is called as the hypothalamus. We will revise once again about the diencephalon, the structures, and then we will get into the proper topic. The diencephalon includes number 1, thalamus, number 2, epithalamus, number 3, the subthalamus, number 4, the hypothalamus, and the posterior lobe of pituitary or the neurohypophysis and the infundibulum. All these structures together makes the diencephalon. The thalamus, we know it is also called as dorsal thalamus. The subthalamus is the sheet of grey matter which is seen in between the midbrain and the thalamus. It is so called as subthalamus and is also called as ventral thalamus. The epithalamus consists of one pineal body in the median aspect and two habenular nucleus. The two habenular nucleus will be communicating by means of commissure called as habenular commissure. The habenular nucleus, the habenular commissures and the pineal body together makes the epithalamus. And the hypothalamus consists of one median eminence and the tuber cinereum and two mammillary body, and it also forms the floor and lateral wall of the third ventricle. These all makes the hypothalamus. In diencephalon, we are going to still add the posterior lobe of pituitary gland, so only it is called as neurohypophysis. So these all makes the diencephalon. It also consists of the optic chiasma and the optic nerve. The optic nerve, as like other nerves, it is not nerve fibers, it is part of the brain. So now we are going to see about the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus location first. The hypothalamus is located in the diencephalon. We have already seen in the previous slide. This is going to be a thin sheet of gray matter which is located exactly like how this picture is mimicking. Like the fluid filled in this region might be the third ventricle CSF. Such a way the hypothalamus is going to form the floor, part of the floor of third ventricle, because third ventricle is situated even between the thalamus also. So part of the floor of third ventricle and the lateral wall of the third ventricle is formed by the hypothalamus. So as I've already told, the hypothalamus is a thin sheet of gray matter. Yes, so is it clear? The hypothalamus location. Now coming to the parts. So when we take, so this picture we are zooming out. This is going to be the whole lot of the hypothalamic region. The hypothalamus, this cavity is going to be the third ventricular cavity. inner aspect, and this is going to be the inferior view of the brain. Yes, so this is going to be the cavity, this is going to be the floor of the third ventricular cavity, and on either sides laterally also the hypothalamus is appreciated. That is going to have tuber cinereum. This is going to be the tuber cinereum, which is going to continue as the median eminence. This median eminence is continuing as the stalk or the infundibulum of the pituitary gland, and here is the pituitary gland. So we should know where the hypothalamus is stopping. The stalk or the infundibulum is not the part of hypothalamus. Only the tuber cinereum and the median eminence. And here comes the mammillary body. This is going to be the right side mammillary body. Along with the left side mammillary body makes the hypothalamus. So, mammillary body, two-side mammillary body, tuber cinereum, the median eminence makes the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus also makes the floor of the third ventricle and lateral wall of the third ventricle. This is going to extend in between the optic chiasma. Can you see this? This is going to be the optic chiasma. The optic nerve is going to come and cross over. So this is going to be the extend anteriorly for the hypothalamus, and behind will be the midbrain. The hypothalamus is located in between the optic chiasma anteriorly and midbrain posteriorly. These mammillary bodies and tuber cinereum are not appreciated within the cavity of third ventricle. Only on the inferior view you can see the mammillary bodies and the tuber cinereum. Here, this is going to be the inferior view of the brain, and this is going to be the interpeduncular fossa. So, we have seen in midbrain. This is going to be the inferior view of the midbrain. This is going to be the crus cerebri. Between the crus cerebri lies your interpeduncular fossa, where we see the mammillary bodies, two mammillary bodies and one tuber cinereum. So this tuber cinereum, two mammillary bodies, and the floor of the third ventricle on either sides, or the lateral wall of the third ventricle, all together makes the location on the content of hypothalamus. Coming to the boundaries of hypothalamus, it is anteriorly bounded by the lamina terminalis, posteriorly bounded by subthalamus and mammillary body. Inferiorly, these all structures, these three along with the mammillary body makes the inferior boundary. That is, structures which are in the floor of third ventricle. The tuber cinereum, the infundibulum, the median eminence, and the mammillary body all together makes the inferior relationship. Superiorly, it is related to the thalamus. The thalamus and the hypothalamus are divided by means of the hypothalamic sulcus. Laterally, the hypothalamus is bounded by the internal capsule, and medially it is bounded by the cavity of the third ventricle. This is about the boundary of the hypothalamus. Here I would wish to tell about the anterior commissure and lamina propria. We should know what is what, then it will be easy for us to understand. Anterior commissure is definitely going to be the white matter fibers or the tracts which is going to communicate both the temporal lobes. Lamina terminalis is nothing but gray matter fibers, gray matter sheet, which is going to communicate or connect the optic chiasma and the anterior commissure, and that is a part of telencephalon. So this makes the boundary. Three main systems which are subserved by the help of hypothalamus is endocrine system, autonomic nervous system, and the limbic system. All the three are very, very important in maintenance of the body. Functions, the main function is the homeostasis, that is it is involving with the food intake, the metabolism, the water intake, the capacity, thermoregulations, the biological clock, or the circadian rhythm, or the reproductive or sexual behavior, etc. Everything comes under the homeostasis, and the maintenance of homeostasis is a main function of the hypothalamus. Next is the endocrine control. We have already told endocrine control via the pituitary, the hypothalamus is helping. It involves in the growth hormones, stress hormone, and reproductive hormones, etc. And then it is confined with the autonomic control. Autonomic system involves both sympathetic and parasympathetic. So hypothalamus is very important and essential in channelizing the sympathetic and the parasympathetic responses. It is confined with the integratory sensory systems and the informations. And finally, with the limbic system. The limbic system is the most interesting topic of neuroanatomy. It is confined with the emotion, behavior, and recent memories. So hypothalamus is having a great influence on three main systems: the endocrine system, the limbic system, and the autonomic nervous system. To know about the divisions and subdivisions of hypothalamus, various sections has been used in this slide. These three are going to be the medial section, and this diagram is going to show the cross section wherein which we are viewing it from the upper aspect. From superiorly, we are viewing the hypothalamus. Yes. So for initially, side to side, the hypothalamus is divided into two zones by means of fornix. This is going to be the fornix. Fornix is nothing but a curved band of white matter. The curved band of white matter, it reaches, see, look at this diagram, this fornix, which is the post-commissural fornix, it penetrates into the hypothalamus and reaches the mammillary body. One structure which is piercing the hypothalamus reaches the mammillary body. The next structure is the white matter fibers from the mammillary body reaches the thalamus. This is called as mammillothalamic tract. You can see in this diagram clearly. See, anteriorly the posterior post-commissural fornix is present, which is piercing the hypothalamus, reaches the mammillary body. The mammillothalamic tract from the mammillary body, it connects to the thalamus. These two structures are going to divide the whole hypothalamus into the medial zone and the lateral zone. Yes, those two zones we have divided. Coming to the medial zone, still more it is divided into two zones. That is the medianmost periventricular zone and two medial zones. Altogether, side to side, when we divide the zones, the hypothalamus is divided into medial zone consisting of the periventricular zone and the medial zone and a lateral zone. When we divide anteroposteriorly or from rostrocaudally, the hypothalamus is divided into four regions. You can even see in this diagram, it will be very clear. Four regions from anteroposteriorly. The first region is going to be the perioptic area and the supraoptic region or area. The perioptic region and the supraoptic region will be in the anterior aspect. In this diagram, they have divided only three regions, but when we take the subdivisions of hypothalamus from anteroposteriorly, we divide into four regions. The preoptic region will be near the lamina terminalis, and the supraoptic region will be above the optic chiasma. Both are anteriorly placed. The third region will be the tuberal region. The tuberal region is just above the tuber cinereum. So it is given as the tuberal region. And the fourth region will be the posterior region, the posterior or the mammillary region, which is just above the mammillary body. So in a nutshell, when we divide from side to side, it has medial zone and the lateral zone. When we divide from anteroposteriorly, it has four regions. anterior-most preoptic region, and then followed by the supraoptic region, tuberal region, and the mammillary region. Coming to the nucleus of the hypothalamus, when we study it regional wise, it will be very easy for us to classify the nucleus. The four regions we know from anteroposteriorly, this is going to be the anterior aspect, this is going to be the posterior aspect. Anteroposteriorly, we know the four divisions or the four regions: preoptic, supraoptic, tuberal, and the mammillary region. So at the preoptic region, there will be the lateral and the medial preoptic nuclei present. And at the supraoptic region, as the name is there, supraoptic nucleus will be there, the suprachiasmatic nucleus will be there, and the anterior hypothalamic nucleus and paraventricular nucleus will be present. On the tuberal region, arcuate nucleus, ventromedial nucleus, and the dorsomedial nucleus will be present. On the mammillary region, mammillary body itself, it will be having the mammillary nucleus in it, and the posterior hypothalamic nucleus will be located. So in this, we will be seeing about the functions corresponding to the nucleus of the hypothalamus. In the previous slide, we have told about the locations of each nucleus. We divided the region and then the nucleus at various level we told. Now, each nucleus, the function of it. For easy understanding, we should take this cartoon. The anterior part, we will be appreciating the anterior supraoptic, preoptic, and the suprachiasmaticus nucleus. So all in all, we will see the functions. The anterior nucleus is responsible for the cooling mechanism, that is maintaining the body cool. If we are exposed to the hot temperature, we are going out in the sun, we will be sweating. So that sweating is for maintaining the body temperature. So such a way the body is cooling down. So that mechanism is initiated at the level of anterior nucleus of hypothalamus. Contrastly, the posterior nucleus on the posterior part of hypothalamus, if you see, it is responsible for the heating mechanism or to keep the body warm. These both are under the control of autonomic nervous system, and this anterior nucleus and the posterior nucleus are responsible for the thermoregulation of body. So the first function of hypothalamus we saw is homeostasis. In that, thermoregulation is the first thing. So anterior nucleus to cool down, posterior nucleus is to keep the body warm. The anterior nucleus is under the control of parasympathetic nervous system, posterior is under the control of sympathetic. These both all together under the autonomic nervous system for the thermoregulation. Next comes the supraoptic nucleus, which is responsible for thirst and urine production. Example, it is confined with water mechanism. It is responsible for regulating the water intake and the output. Yes. So next is going to be the preoptic nucleus, which is confined with the sexual and the reproductive function. The fourth one is going to be the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is responsible for the circadian rhythm or the biological clock. What is biological clock then? So 24 hours cycle. So what is our day-to-day routine? Morning we wake up, we used to do our morning regimes daily, and then we will go to work, we will come home, we will have snacks in the evening, and then we will go to the sleep. Morning, exactly, without even an alarm, we will be getting up by 6 or 7. Yes, I guess my students will be getting up by 6 and studying. So these are all going to be a routine cycle which you do even without your knowledge. That is the impulse given out by the suprachiasmatic nucleus of hypothalamus. And coming to the central part, where you will be seeing the paraventricular nucleus, ventromedial nucleus, dorsomedial nucleus, lateral nucleus, and the arcuate nucleus. The paraventricular nucleus is responsible for the production of oxytocin. Oxytocin is an ocean to study. It is responsible with milk ejection, contraction of the uterus at birth, and many functions it is having. Ventromedial nucleus is responsible for fullness. That is some sort of fullness you don't eat. Mind, like that you will be telling, na? That sort of fullness feel is given out by the impulse given by the ventromedial nucleus. And coming to the dorsomedial nucleus, the dorsomedial nucleus is also confined with these things only. The lateral nucleus is responsible for the hungry. It is the hunger center. It is the alarm which is going to sense you better go eat something. So that is confined with the lateral nucleus. Coming to the posterior part of the hypothalamus, the posterior nucleus and the mammillary nucleus is present. Posterior nucleus we have already discussed. Mammillary nucleus is a part of the limbic system. We know main function of the limbic system is emotion and reason memory. So it is going hand with the limbic system. The connections of hypothalamus includes both afferent as well as efferent connections. The afferent connections are received through the spinal cord and the brainstem. The first connection is the fornix, which connects the hippocampus to the mammillary body. Then the stria terminalis, which connects the amygdaloid body to the preoptic and the anterior nucleus of the hippocampus. The mammillary peduncle transmits the sensory impulse from the spinal cord and brainstem to the lateral nucleus of the hypothalamus. The medial forebrain bundles, it connects the hippocampal with the autonomic and the limbic structures of the forebrain. And there are also the other referent fibers such as thalamo-hypothalamic, palido-hypothalamic and subthalamo-hypothalamic tracts, which are the efferent connections of hypothalamus. The efferent connections of hypothalamus are the mammillothalamic tract, mammallotegmental tract, and the descending fibers. Apart from that, the hypothalamus sends fibers to the autonomic centers in the brainstem and spinal cord also. The mammillothalamic tract, it is going to connect the mammillary body with that of the thalamus. In that, the anterior nucleus of the thalamus, which in turn is going to connect with the cingulate gyrus. The mammillotegmental tract, tegmentum region of the brainstem, it is going to give the mammillary body or the mammillary nucleus to the tegmental region. The fibers are connecting. The descending fibers to the brainstem. Through these fibers, the hypothalamus can influence the peripheral neurons of the autonomic nervous system. Some nucleus present at the hypothalamus, for example, the supraoptic and the paraventricular nucleus of hypothalamus. What these nucleus will be doing is it produces the bioactive peptides that is discharged through the capillaries nearby or via the CSF itself. The process is called as the neurosecretions. Such a way it is influencing on the pituitary. Yes. So in such supraoptic and the paraventricular nucleuses, it is going to secrete the vasopressin and the oxytocin respectively, and they will be interconnected or they are influenced by the pituitary gland. Coming to the applied anatomy of hypothalamus, the first disease is the hypothalamic obesity. It is associated with the lesion of the ventromedial nucleus. So what happens here? Initially, the patient will be behaving very weird, very aggressively, and then there will be hyperphagia, and slowly the patient will start gaining weight, and this condition is called as hypothalamic obesity. Next comes the memory dysfunction, wherein which the ventromedial and the premammillary areas are disturbed because of the lesion. Right. So what happens here? There will be a dementia and illness. And next is the abnormalities of the thermoregulations. Here we have already told the anterior and posterior hypothalamic nucleus is involved. Next comes the diencephalonic syndrome. Here what happens? It is caused by the tumor which is invading the anterior and the basal hypothalamus. some of the symptoms is going to be motor hyperactivity, euphoria, and increased alertness, sleeplessness. Everything will be the symptoms of diencephalic syndrome. Next comes the craniopharyngioma, wherein which the tumor is developed in the Rathke's pouch. This disease is not directly related to the hypothalamus because from the Rathke's pouch, the anterior lobe of the pituitary is developed. The anterior part of the pituitary is not a part of diencephalon, but since it is present near the optic chiasma, or it is present between the optic chiasma and the posterior lobe of pituitary, it can compress the optic chiasma and the posterior pituitary. They both are developed from the diencephalon. So what happens here? It is going to compress both optic chiasma and the hypothalamus. If the optic chiasma is compressed, there will be visual abnormalities and headaches. If the hypothalamus is compressed, and there will be hypogonadism, hyperprolactinemia, diabetes, and weight gain. And coming to the Kallmann's syndrome, here there is a failure to start puberty, and primary amenorrhea and insomnia will be appreciated. This condition, narcolepsy, is nothing but a sleep disorder. Sleep disorder which is associated with the CSF also. So as far as the hypothalamus is concerned, for you BDS students, you should give an intro about the hypothalamus first, and then about the location of it and boundary of it. Then you should tell about the division, the zone-wise division and the region-wise division. Next, you should comment about the nucleuses located at various zones and the tracts which are passing through that, or the specific functions of that particular nucleus. Then you should write about the functions of hypothalamus in general. Next, you should concentrate about the tracts which are passing through, the afferent, the efferent, the hypophyseal, hypothalamic tracts, and the tubero-infundibular tracts, etc. And finally, you should end up by writing the applied anatomy in a descriptive way. So we are going to see about epithalamus here. Epithalamus. Epi means above. Epithalamus, above the thalamus. Exactly, if we say the epithalamus occupies the caudal part of the third ventricle. We know diencephalon, the ventricle related to diencephalon is going to be the third ventricle. Around the third ventricle lies all the structures of the diencephalon. The epithalamus is the structures which are seen on the uh, roof of the third ventricle. So we are going to see about the structures, what makes the epithalamus, the thalamic medullary striae, the habelular trigone, the habelular commissures, pineal body, and the posterior commissures makes the epithalamus. In general, if you remember, the epithalamus is mainly confined with the pineal body and the habelular nucleus. The remaining trigone or the commissure, everything will come under habelular nucleus itself, because habelular nucleus of either sides are connected by means of habenular commissure. Can you see here? These two are going to be the habenular nucleus, which are located on the place called as the habenular trigone. They both are connected by means of habenular commissures. So all the three content came. And coming to the pineal body is nothing but a small conical structure. It is also called as the epiphysis cerebri. It is 8 mm in length and 5 mm in width, and it is attached to the caudal part of the third ventricle, exactly to the roof of the third ventricle. It is connected by means of a stalk. While it is connected, it is intertwined by a recess called as the pineal recess, which divides the stalk into two regions. That is going to be the dorsal and the ventral lamina. The dorsal lamina is going to be traversed by the habenular commissure. We know what is habenular commissure. The ventral lamella is traversed by the posterior commissure. You can see as a content of the epithalamus, the posterior commissure. Posterior commissure is nothing but the commissure which is going to connect both the side pretectal nucleus. If you remember properly, in the midbrain at the level of superior colliculus, we would have seen about the pretectal nucleus, and the commissure between either sides of the pretectal nucleus makes the posterior commissure. So altogether, the epithalamus consists of pineal body, the habenular nucleus, habenular trigone, habenular commissure, thalamic medullary striae, and the posterior commissure. So the main function of the pineal gland is secreting the melatonin. Via the serotonin, it is going to influence on the sexual development and the circadian cycle. So this particular secretion, that is the melatonin, is derived from pineal gland. As far as the pineal gland is confined, the clinical anatomy of it is pineal tumor. It is a very rare type of tumor and exhibits symptoms like headache, nausea, vomiting, vision problem, tiredness, and memory loss. These are all the common symptoms, but for further investigations, the further ruling technique should be used. And the main drawback here is the tumor here can be spread through the CSF to the other regions. Now coming to the habenular nucleus. The habenular nucleus, as we have already told, it is a pair of nucleus which is medially and laterally placed, and they are located in the habenular trigone in this diagram. The green colored region is going to be the habenular nucleus with the diagram. The main function of it is confined with the smell sensations, olfactions, and the afferent and the efferent fibers passing through the nucleus are. The first one, we are going to talk about the afferent fibers. The afferent through the stria medullaris thalami conveys fiber from the septal area and the preoptic region of the hypothalamus, amygdaloid body via the stria terminalis, and the hippocampus through the fornix. And do some fibers cross over from one side habenula to the other side nucleus via the commissural fibers. The efferent fibers are projected into the interpedunclar nucleus through the habenulo-interpedunclar bundles. And that is about the epithalamus. Hope you people understood something about hypothalamus and epithalamus. Thank you.